The elevator doors slid shut with a soft metallic thud, and Lena Whitmore Hale didn't look back. Her fingers trembled as she pressed the ground floor button, one hand gripping her phone, the other resting instinctively on her stomach. The screen glowed with the red recording symbol. "Caleb," she said into the phone, her voice tight but steady. "By the time you hear this, I'll already be gone." The elevator began its slow descent. Her reflection stared back at her from the mirrored wall, eyes glassy, jaw set, heartbreak contained by sheer will. "I'm 3 months pregnant," she continued, swallowing hard. "And I waited. I waited for the right moment. I waited for you to notice me long enough to hear it." Her thumb hovered, then pressed stop. She didn't send it yet. Upstairs, in the glass and marble penthouse they once called home, Caleb Hale stood barefoot in the living room, phone pressed to his ear, packing between floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan's glittering skyline. "No, that timeline doesn't work," he snapped. "Push the rollout, I don't care what marketing thinks." He didn't notice the suitcase missing from the corner. He didn't notice the framed wedding photo turned face down on the console table. He didn't notice the silence. "Email Myra," he said into the phone. "She'll handle it." He ended the call and immediately dialed another number. The glow from his laptop cast sharp shadows across his face, lines carved by years of ambition, sleepless nights, and a quiet certainty that success required sacrifice. Lena stood in the kitchen doorway, watching him. "Caleb," she said softly. "Just a second," he replied without looking up, already typing. She waited, 10 seconds, 20. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the counter. "I have something important to tell you." He sighed, irritation flickering across his face. "Can it wait? This is." His phone buzzed again. Myra's name flashed across the screen. "Urgent," he finished, already answering. "Yes, I saw it. No, don't loop legal yet." Lena felt something inside her finally collapse. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. She turned away. 3 hours later, she stood alone in their bedroom, suitcase zipped, coat on. The city hummed outside, indifferent. She sat on the edge of the bed and recorded the message again. "This isn't about another woman," she said, voice breaking this time. "It's about absence, about being married and still feeling alone." She inhaled sharply. "I won't raise our child in a home where love is always postponed." She hit send. Then she left. Caleb didn't listen to the message that night. He ordered food that went untouched, took another call, fell asleep on the couch with his phone still in his hand. Morning came in pale and quiet. He woke to silence that felt wrong. "Lena," he called, rubbing his eyes. No answer. He walked into the bedroom. The bed was made, too neatly. His chest tightened. He noticed the missing suitcase, the empty closet space, the ring on the dresser. His phone buzzed, a voicemail notification. He pressed play. Her voice filled the room. By the time she said the word pregnant, his knees buckled, and he sank onto the edge of the bed. "She's pregnant," he whispered, replaying it again as if the words might change. When the message ended, the penthouse felt cavernous, cold. He stared at the city outside the window, everything he'd built, everything he'd chased, and felt, for the first time, like he was standing on top of nothing. "No," he muttered, grabbing his phone. "No, no, no." He called her, straight to voicemail. Again. Nothing. He stood there for a long moment, then swiped his phone and called his office. "Myra," he said when she answered, voice flat. "Clear my schedule, all of it." There was a pause. "Caleb, the board meeting." "I said clear it." Another pause. "Okay." "And cancel my flights. I'm not going anywhere." "What about?" "I'll handle it," he snapped, then softened. "Thank you, that's all." He ended the call and stared at the wedding ring on the dresser. 6 years. 6 years of believing love could wait. Lena stepped off the bus in Harborwind Cove, just as the sun dipped toward the horizon. The air smelled like salt and wood smoke. The town was quiet, slow, nothing like New York. She breathed deeply, as if her lungs were finally filling for the first time. A small cottage waited for her, temporary, modest, peaceful. She unlocked the door, stepped inside, and leaned against it, pressing her hand to her mouth as a sob finally escaped. "I'm okay," she whispered to herself. "I will be." She rested her hand on her stomach again. "For you," she said softly, "I'll be strong." 3 days later, Caleb stood on the dock at Harborwind Cove, hands shoved into his coat pockets, staring at the water. He'd fired the private investigator the moment he arrived. This wasn't about chasing anymore. It was about showing up. He spotted her near the general store, struggling with grocery bags. "Lena," he called, voice unsure. She froze. Slowly, she turned. They stared at each other across the street, 6 years of marriage hanging between them. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly. "I know," he replied, "but I am." She exhaled shakily. "You don't get to disappear when it's convenient and reappear when it hurts." "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he said quickly. "I'm asking for time." Her eyes filled with tears. "Time is what I ran out of." She turned and walked away. Caleb watched her go, heart pounding, realizing this was only the beginning, and the hardest part was still ahead. Caleb didn't leave Harborwind Cove after that first encounter. He stood on the dock long after Lena disappeared down the street, the wind cutting through his coat, the water slapping against the wood like a quiet reprimand. For the first time in his life, there was nowhere he needed to be, nothing demanding his attention. No meetings, no deadlines, no urgency except the one burning in his chest. He walked into the nearest diner, sat at the counter, and ordered black coffee. "You're not from around here," the waitress said casually, setting the mug in front of him. "No," Caleb replied, "but I'm trying to be." She smiled faintly and moved on. Across town, Lena stood in her small kitchen, unpacking groceries she didn't remember buying. Her hands moved on autopilot as her mind replayed Caleb's voice. "I'm asking for time." She scoffed quietly. "You had 6 years," she muttered. Her phone buzzed on the counter. A text. "Caleb, I won't come by again unless you ask me to. I just wanted you to know I'm here." She stared at the screen for a long time, then turned the phone face down. That night, sleep didn't come easily for either of them. Caleb lay awake in the small motel room he'd checked into, staring at the ceiling fan as it creaked rhythmically. Every sound reminded him of something he'd ignored: Lena's voice, her patience. The way she'd learned to speak softly, because loudness never reached him. He rolled onto his side and whispered into the darkness, "I didn't know." But even he didn't believe that. The next morning, Caleb walked down to the marina just after sunrise. A stocky man with a weathered face stood inspecting a boat, sleeves rolled up, hands rough with years of work. "Looking for someone?" the man asked without turning around. "I'm looking for work," Caleb replied. That earned him a glance, a slow, skeptical one. "You don't look like the type." Caleb nodded. "I know." The man wiped his hands on a rag. "Name, Tom, you ever worked with boats?" "No." Tom chuckled. "Figures you strong." "Yes." "You complain." "No." Tom studied him for another second, then jerked his head toward a pile of nets. "Grab those. If you're still here by noon, we'll talk." Caleb grabbed the nets. They were heavier than he expected. The ropes burned his palms. His back screamed in protest. By mid-morning, sweat soaked through his shirt and his hands were raw. And yet, he didn't stop. Across town, Lena walked past the marina on her way back from a prenatal appointment. She saw him immediately. Caleb, hauling nets with strained shoulders, face flushed, jaw clenched in effort. She slowed, heart pounding. "What are you doing?" she thought. He hadn't seen her yet. He was too focused, too exhausted. For a brief, confusing moment, she felt something she hadn't felt in months. Recognition. She turned away before he could notice her. That evening, Lena found a small brown paper bag on her doorstep. Inside was a loaf of bread, still warm, and a folded note. I didn't know what you liked. Tom said this one sells out fast. Say. She stared at it, anger and confusion tangling in her chest. No, she whispered. You don't get to do this. She ate the bread anyway. Days passed. Caleb showed up at the marina every morning before sunrise. He worked until his muscles shook, then worked some more. He didn't talk about his past. He didn't ask for favors. He listened. At night, he sat alone in his motel room, staring at his phone, fighting the urge to text her. Lena noticed the small things before she wanted to. The fence he fixed without being asked. The groceries he quietly paid for at the store when she wasn't looking. The way he always gave her space. One afternoon, she finally confronted him. She found him rinsing his hands at the marina sink, knuckles bruised, palms blistered. Why are you doing this? She demanded. He turned startled. Doing what? This, she snapped, gesturing at everything. The job, the waiting, the pretending. I'm not pretending, he said quietly. She laughed, sharp and humorless. You think manual labor fixes 6 years of neglect? No, he replied, but running from it definitely didn't. She folded her arms protectively over her stomach. You left me alone, over and over, and now you want points for showing up late. I don't want points, he said. I want accountability. She hesitated, thrown off. I didn't know how to love without control, he continued. I thought if I kept moving, nothing could touch me. I was wrong. Her voice cracked. I begged you to slow down. I know, he whispered, and I'm sorry. Silence stretched between them. Finally, she said, sorry doesn't raise a child. I know, he repeated, but I want to learn how. She searched his face, looking for the arrogance she'd grown used to. It wasn't there. Don't follow me, she said softly. Not yet. He nodded. I won't. That night, Caleb sat across from Dr. Evelyn Ross in a small rented office above a bookstore. Why now? She asked gently. He stared at the floor. Because I finally lost something I can't replace. She waited. My parents left when I was young, he said after a moment. I learned early that attachment was temporary, so I focused on things that stayed: numbers, results, success. And Lena, Dr. Ross asked. He swallowed. She stayed, and I treated that like a guarantee. The words seemed to break something open inside him. Lena sat alone on her couch that same night, hands resting on her stomach as she felt the baby move for the first time. Tears streamed down her face. Did you feel that? She whispered instinctively, then stopped. She was alone. Or at least, she was supposed to be. Her phone buzzed. Caleb, I started therapy today. I don't expect that to mean anything to you. I just wanted to be honest. She didn't reply. But she didn't delete the message either. The rain started without warning. One moment the harbor was calm, the next the sky split open, sending sheets of water crashing down on the docks. Caleb didn't move. He kept hauling crates, soaked through, muscles screaming, rain plastering his hair to his forehead. Hey, Tom shouted from across the dock. That's enough for today. You'll drown out here. Caleb nodded, setting the crate down with a grunt. As he turned toward the shed, he saw Lena standing beneath the awning across the street. She hadn't planned to come. She told herself that as she watched him, wet, exhausted, stripped of every layer of control he once hid behind. He noticed her then, froze. For a second, neither of them spoke. I didn't mean to interrupt, she said finally, raising her voice over the rain. I was just passing by. He walked toward her slowly, stopping a few feet away. You don't interrupt anymore, he said. You just arrive. Something about that made her throat tighten. They stood there, rain roaring between them. You look tired, she said. I am, he replied, in a good way. She studied him. You always said exhaustion was a weakness. He gave a small, sad smile. Turns out numbness is worse. Silence fell again, heavier this time. I felt her move, Lena said suddenly, her hand drifting to her stomach. Caleb's breath caught. You did. Yes, her voice softened despite herself. Last night. What did it feel like? He asked, careful, like he was approaching something fragile. Like a reminder, she said, that something real is happening whether we're ready or not. He nodded slowly. I want to be ready. She laughed bitterly. That's the problem. You always want things when it's already too late. I know, he said, but I don't want to miss this. She looked at him sharply. This isn't about you anymore. I know, he repeated. It's about her. The rain slowed to a drizzle. I don't trust you, Lena said, voice trembling now. Every time I let myself believe you'd show up, you disappeared into something more important. There was always something more important, he said quietly. Until there was. She stepped back. You don't get to rewrite the past just because you regret it. I'm not trying to, he said. I'm trying to live differently now. She shook her head. You don't understand what it did to me, watching you choose everything else, wondering what was so wrong with me that I was never enough. His eyes filled. There was nothing wrong with you, he said hoarsely. There was something broken in me. She turned away, pressing her lips together as tears spilled. Go home, she whispered, please. He didn't argue. I'll be here, he said, if you ever want to talk. She walked away before he could see her cry. That night, Lena dreamed of the penthouse. The silence, the glass walls, the echo of her own voice trying to matter. She woke gasping, heart racing, hands shaking. Stop, she whispered to herself. You left, you're safe now. But safety didn't erase grief. The next morning, she found herself dialing a number she hadn't planned to call. Dr. Evelyn Ross listened patiently as Lena spoke for the first time, not as Caleb's wife, but as herself. I don't know who I am outside of loving him, Lena admitted, and I'm terrified that if I forgive him, I'll disappear again. That fear makes sense, Dr. Ross said gently. Forgiveness doesn't mean erasure, it means boundaries. Lena nodded slowly, the words sinking in. Weeks passed. Caleb continued therapy, continued working, continued showing up. But something inside him shifted. He stopped waiting for Lena's approval, stopped performing, started changing quietly for himself. One afternoon, Tom tossed him a bottle of water and said, You know, people don't stay in this town unless they're running from something or toward it. Caleb smiled faintly. I think I'm finally doing the second one. Lena noticed the change before she wanted to. He wasn't watching her anymore, wasn't hovering, wasn't waiting for her to soften. He was just living. That scared her more than his persistence ever had. One evening, she found him sitting on the dock, staring out at the water. Why aren't you trying harder? She asked bluntly. He glanced up, trying harder how? Grand gestures, promises, apologies. He considered that, because I already did those for years without meaning them. She frowned. So now what? Now I let you decide, he said simply. Her chest tightened. I don't know what I want, she admitted. That's okay, he replied. I'm not going anywhere. She swallowed. You said that once. And I was lying, he said. This time I'm not. The ultrasound appointment was scheduled on a gray Tuesday morning. Lena almost canceled. She sat in her car outside the clinic, hands gripping the steering wheel, heart pounding. Her phone buzzed. Caleb, I'm here, if you want me to be. She stared at the message for a long moment. Then she texted back. Lena, come inside. He was already in the waiting room when she walked in, standing up too quickly, eyes wide with nervous hope. Hi, he said softly. Hi, she replied. They sat side by side, not touching. Inside the exam room, the technician dimmed the lights. Ready? She asked. Lena nodded, breath held. The sound filled the room suddenly, fast, steady, undeniable. Caleb gasped. Oh my God, he whispered, tears spilling freely now. That's her. Lena covered her mouth, sobbing. For the first time since she left, she reached for his hand. He held it like it might disappear. The weeks after the ultrasound passed quietly. Not the tense quiet that once filled the penthouse, but a different kind. Careful, deliberate, earned. Caleb didn't move into Lena's cottage. He didn't ask. He rented a small room above the marina instead, waking before sunrise every day, walking to work with the same steady rhythm. He attended therapy twice a week now, sometimes leaving those sessions hollow-eyed and silent, other times lighter, as if something old had finally loosened its grip. Lena noticed everything. She noticed how he listened now, really listened, when she spoke, not interrupting, not fixing, not redirecting. She noticed how he asked questions he'd never asked before. How are you feeling today? Did you sleep? What do you need? And when she didn't have answers, he didn't push. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the water gold, Lena stood on her porch and watched him walk past, toolbox slung over his shoulder. Caleb, she called. He stopped immediately, turning to face her like the sound of her voice mattered more than anything else. Can you come sit for a minute? She asked. He nodded, of course. They sat side by side on the wooden steps. The distance between them was small now, but intentional. I'm scared, she admitted quietly. Of me, he asked. Of losing myself again, she said. Of believing things will be different and being wrong. He swallowed. I don't blame you. She looked at him then, really looked at him. Why are you still here? He met her gaze without flinching. Because for the first time in my life, staying feels braver than leaving. Her eyes filled with tears. I can't promise you forgiveness, she said. I'm not asking for it, he replied. I'm asking for the chance to earn trust, every day. She nodded slowly. That's all I can offer, too. The baby arrived on a quiet morning just before dawn. The contractions started gently, almost politely, as if giving Lena time to breathe through her fear. Caleb was with her within minutes, hands shaking as he helped her into the car. I'm here, he kept saying. I'm right here. At the hospital, time blurred into pain and effort and breath. When the baby finally cried, a strong, defiant sound, Lena collapsed back against the pillow, sobbing with relief. Caleb stood frozen, tears streaming down his face as the nurse placed the tiny bundle in his arms. She's perfect, he whispered, voice breaking. She's perfect. Lena watched him carefully, her heart pounding. Do you want to hold her? He asked, turning toward her. She nodded. As their daughter settled against her chest, Lena felt something shift, something soft and terrifying and beautiful. Hope, she whispered. Caleb smiled through his tears. Hope, he repeated. They didn't rush into declarations or promises after that. There was no dramatic reunion, no sweeping forgiveness. Just days filled with small, meaningful choices. Caleb learned how to change diapers, how to wake at odd hours without complaint, how to rock their daughter to sleep while whispering apologies she would never understand, but that he needed to say anyway. Lena learned how to let him help without surrendering herself, how to speak when something hurt instead of swallowing it, how to trust slowly without losing her footing. One afternoon, months later, Lena stood in the doorway of the marina watching Caleb laugh with Tom as they hauled in the last boat of the day. She realized then that she wasn't watching him to see if he'd fail. She was watching because she wanted him to succeed. That scared her. That healed her. They moved into a modest house near the water just before Hope's first winter. Nothing fancy, no glass walls, no echoing rooms. Just warmth. One evening, Lena found Caleb standing in the kitchen, holding Hope as she babbled happily. You know, he said thoughtfully, I used to think success meant never slowing down. She leaned against the counter, and now... He smiled softly at their daughter. Now, I think it means being exactly where you're needed. Lena crossed the room and rested her head against his shoulder. "This is still fragile," she said. "I know," he replied, "and I'll protect it." Years later, when Hope would ask why they left the city, Lena would smile and say, "Because we found something more important." And Caleb would add quietly, "Because I learned how to stay." If this story moved you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps stories like this reach the hearts that need them most. And remember, sometimes the greatest success isn't what you build. It's who you choose to show up for.